What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Hoopers Lounge podcast featuring Max and myself. We are about a week away from the NBA's All-Star break. The trade deadline has just finished, and we have seen a little bit of the buyout market start to take place. Not as much as I think either of us were anticipating, but a major name was waived and recently scooped up as former San Antonio Spur Jeremy Sochan was picked up by the New York Knicks off waivers, and he'll play with them for the rest of the year. Um, Sochan, he's a very versatile defender. I think he's one of the very few guys who can actually claim he can guard 1 through 5, which gives him a lot of value. Offensively, his game is still very much a work in progress, and I think his San Antonio Spurs legacy will be best known as the original Wemby stopper for the amount of times that Jeremy Sochan would not pass a wide open Wembanyama the fall in his rookie year. That is a Spurs legacy, and so yeah, now he's on a contender with the Knicks. Max, what do you think about the move from the Knicks, and what do you think about it from Sochan's perspective? Do you think this is a win-win?
Yeah, it's good for the Spurs because he wasn't playing. I think it's all right for the Knicks. I see him as a similar player to in play style in terms of like a Josh Hart. And the Knicks love them some Josh Hart. So I think he's going to be fine for the Knicks. I really liked their Alvarado pickup. He was great the other night against Philly. So that's two really pesky defenders to come off the bench, which is good. It'll be interesting to see how that works out. From Sochan's perspective, it's definitely a win. If you know the Knicks are going to play you, they definitely have a chance to win the East this year. So yeah, I think it's a win-win for both teams, the Knicks and the Spurs, and it's a win for Sochan too, in my opinion. Back to your Spurs legacy point about Sochan, it's the Wemby stopper, like you said, and the Dennis Rodman comparisons. That was like his entire Spurs legacy were those two things. So yeah, I completely agree with you, and I think it's a win for all parties at this point in the season.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about it from the Knicks. Like you said, I feel like Sochan would essentially play the Josh Hart rule. But Josh Hart, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he's coming off the bench the majority of the time this year for the Knicks. Um, I'm not sure if that's the case, but I know in previous years he has.
He's
So I guess my question is, how many minutes is there to go around for the Josh Hart role? Are you going to take away some minutes from Hart, who has shown he can handle like the extended playing time? Or are you going to take away minutes from the other starters to let Sohan get comfortable with the team? I don't know how the fit is for this current season. We'll have to see what the Knicks do in the offseason, whether they see Sochan as a long-term piece or as more of a bench player or stopgap of sorts. But in terms of a team fit, I'm kind of questioning how Sochan fits on the Knicks.
Yeah, I see in the regular season, I think he's going to play more than he does in the playoffs just to get him acclimated. But teams like this, like at the top third of the league that are really contending for a championship, I think depth is super important, especially with all the injuries we've seen this year. And Josh Hart has been starting, by the way, a lot this year. He has come off the bench at times, but he usually starts with OG and Bridges and Cat and Brunson. That's usually the starting five they roll out there. Um, but I think Sochan's fit is it's to be determined, like you said. I think that was a great way to describe it. However, I do like the move from the Knicks just from a depth perspective because if someone like Josh Hart or OG Anunoby were to get hurt, I feel like Sochan is just an easy fill in to kind of check some of the boxes that those two players give you on the defensive end, at least. Offensively, it's a totally different story. But when you have Brunson, Bridges, and Cat on the court at the same time, you really don't need more offense than that, in my opinion. So um, I think Sochan will. I think he'll be good for the Knicks. I do, and I think this was a move just to make them a little bit better. It's not a move that's going to make them a lot better, but I think it made them a little bit better.
All right, you mentioned injuries, and that's a perfect segue to our next topic. Injuries have been a huge story of the NBA this season. We've talked about how the MVP race has been impacted by the very superstar injuries a lot this year, and the MVP or the All Star game itself has been affected by injuries. We said before this episode that the All Star game needs an injury report at this point for the amount of players that are questionable or might be missing games. Just in the last week, we have had three injury replacements. Um, First off, Shengun is replacing Shea Gilgeous-Alexander after Shea was announced to be out until after the All-Star break. So Shengun is now an All-Star. We have De'Aaron Fox replacing Giannis Antetokounmpo. Giannis is on the World Team, so they moved Norman Powell from the USA to the World Team, and then De'Aaron Fox is slotted in as Team USA. And then Brandon Ingram is the final injury replacement coming in for Steph Curry on the Team USA. So, what is your big takeaway from this myriad of injuries that we're seeing in the All Star game? What do you think the league can do to better incentivize its players to partake?
Yeah. First off, I didn't even know they moved Norman Powell to the World Team. I didn't even know they could do that. Is he from another country, or is he from the U.S.?
He played international ball in the Bahamas. So he played. I think he was born in the U.S. Played college ball in the U.S. But he has Bahamas citizenship and plays international ball with them.
Okay. Okay. All right. So the citizenship thing that won me over. If he just played international basketball but was on the World Team, I think that's a complete disregard of the new rules they put in place. But since you're telling me he's a citizen there, that I'll allow that.
Well, I don't think you can play nationally for a country if you're not a citizen for it.
Yeah, that's probably true, especially if you're getting paid. That is true.
Mm-hmm.
But I just didn't know that he did that. Okay, so that makes sense in my head now. Back to your question about how to incentivize players, and I'll get into this. I have kind of some ideas about the tanking problem, and these kind of go hand in hand. I would just shorten the season. 82 games is too long when the best players are playing 42 minutes a night. Like, it's just way too long. I think that a season closer to 65, 70 games would, one, reduce injuries, and two, incentivize players to play in the All-Star game because they're playing less games total, in my opinion. That's kind of where I would start. I don't think that would solve all your problems, and injuries are still part of the game that are, quite frankly, unavoidable. But this year, I feel like the top-end talent in the NBA, just so many guys are going down. We've got guys that we don't even know if they're playing yet. Like Ant and Luka could play, and we don't even know if they're going to play. We have so many injuries this year that we literally pulled up a dude with a torn Achilles that hasn't played to be in the three-point contest. That's how many injuries there are this year. Like, it's insane. So I think that the NBA, in my opinion, I am way less excited for this All-Star game than in years past. Just because my favorite players, Steph, Giannis, Ant might not play, right? Like, again, we've talked about this before. I don't care to see Brandon Ingram and Şengün in the All-Star game. Like, personally, I just don't. I'm not going to turn on the All-Star game to watch those two guys play. And it sucks. And you think of a rising star, like Cooper Flag just got hurt. He's not playing in the Rising Stars game tonight. So he's out indefinitely. Like, Cooper Flag has not been playing. He's out. And he will not be partaking in All-Star weekend. And so, to me, like, the Rising Stars game, I was excited to watch him and Khan, play tonight. Well, that ain't happening anymore. I mean, so the injuries are such a bummer. I am happy for the guys that got in. Like I said, everyone that was an injury replacement definitely deserved it, and they were some of the names we mentioned as snubs. But the overall game itself is underwhelming. Is that the word I'm looking for? I don't know. It hasn't. I could take it. I mean, and the guys that are healthy, do they even care about the game? Like, I don't know. It's tough.
Yeah, I'm about to sound like a massive hater. I disagree with pretty much everything you said. First of all, Damian Lillard was not put in the three-point contest because of the amount of injuries. He was put in because he's a two-time champion of the event in the past. And he has history. He has legacy with this event. You say you're not going to put on the All-Star game to watch Şengün and Brandon Ingram. Well, I'm going to watch the three-point contest to watch Damian Lillard. That is why the NBA put him in. So it's like you completely discredited Dame's argument for the three-point contest, and you as your reasoning for not including guys in the All-Star game. But the main part I disagree with is shortening the season. This cannot happen at all. And I think I'm in the minority at this point. I think this is an unpopular opinion. Shortening the season is something that can never happen. And here's why. The NBA, since its origin, has been an 82-game season. Every single record, every single bit of history attached to the NBA is part of an 82-game season. Do you know how many records will be made unobtainable if they shorten the season? Golden State 73 win season? That's never be touched. Hell, no team will ever win 70 games in a season again. That for years has been a landmark number to qualify an elite team. That will not be a thing anymore. Russell Westbrook's triple doubles in a season, that won't be touched. The total points in a season, total rebounds, assists, whatever, none of those will be touched. And so much of NBA history is entrenched in those records. And so much of every season story at the end of the year is players who are about to break records. Like that's a huge talking point every year, and reducing the amount of games will just take away that entire aspect of it. Plus, reducing the games will not necessarily incentivize players to not just play in the All-Star game, but it's not going to solve the resting problem. Players aren't going like you're not going to incentivize players to play 60 games out of or 40 games out of 60 instead of 60 out of 80. That's the same thing to them. You're taking 20. You have a 15 game. You have an 18 game limit for when you can't until you can't win awards, right? So if the season's 65, that just puts the number at 47 games. Players will play 47 games instead of 65. I would rather see players play 65 out of 82 games than 47 out of 65. Reducing the amount of games is not going to take away what rest brings to the players. Rest and recovery is still essential. It is still crucial. And whether you play 60, 80, or 100 games, you're still going to be resting players.
Okay, I like your point about the history and the records. I agree with that. I do like that part of the game, and I think if we shorten the season, that would take that away. So I'm just going to disregard that part of your argument because I agree with that. However, just because you're shortening the number of games doesn't mean you're shortening the length of the season. So what I mean by that is you can still play the season from October to April, but instead of 82 games, you play 70. That would, in theory, remove all back-to-backs for every team. Therefore, players that rest on back-to-backs, that won't happen. So guys will not be missing the same amount because they'll have more days in between each game. Does that make sense? So you don't have to shorten the length of the season by shortening the number of games guys are playing. So to me, that's where I disagree with you because there's still ways to get around the rest aspect of it because guys that are 35 and up that only play one night of a back-to-back, you just remove back-to-backs. And the way you do that is to remove games because you can't make the season longer, right? You can't go from October to July and then you end up rolling the finals into football season. That loses money, right? You can't do that. And so my opinion would be to shorten the season or shorten the amount of games, but keep the length of the season the same. And I know I didn't mention that in my original argument, but that would remove some of the scheduling problems with the NBA as well as the injuries. So
if the problem the NBA was having revolved or was centered around players resting in back-to-back games, I would agree with you. However, I think the issue the NBA is experiencing more is these calf strains or hamstring strains or these sprains that normally in the past they kept players out for, I don't know, a day or two. Maybe they would miss a day of practice. Now, teams are being extra cautious, especially if they're a star player, and keeping them out for weeks or even months at a time because they don't want to risk these players suffering a more catastrophic and devastating injury and keeping them out for the entire next year. That is the issue with the NBA. I don't think it's necessarily back-to-back games. I don't think that's where the because look, if I'm seeing LeBron James play one game and then he sits out the next game, that's not the end of the world. I still saw LeBron. That's not the issue the NBA is having. But when LeBron suffers a hamstring strain and it keeps him out for 2 weeks, and that is where instead of 2 days like it used to be, that is the issue the NBA has.
Yeah, and
I don't think reducing the amount of games will solve that issue at hand.
Interesting, because I disagree with that as well, because if I know a guy is resting for 2 weeks after an injury, that to me tells that coaching staffs know they have more games to play with. They know that they have a long season ahead of them and they need to rest him. But if the season was shorter, each regular season game will mean a little bit more in the standings. And you can't afford to rest a guy like Luka for 2 weeks because you don't have as many games left on the schedule. So to me, that's kind of counterintuitive where
that does make sense.
If, for example, if a guy gets hurt 3 weeks into the season, you know there's a long season ahead, right? And if we still had 70 games and he got hurt 3 weeks into the season, they would still have a long season. I'm not saying that will fix it entirely, but it's at least a move in the right direction. Because coaching staffs will have a higher sense of urgency earlier in the season as opposed to what they do now. Because, again, we have guys missing the All-Star game. We have teams tanking before All-Star break. Like, this is a problem because the season is just too long. And that's just a fact. I understand your argument about the historical records and all that. I actually agree with that. But in terms of an injury and a tanking and a incentivizing players to care about each and every regular season game, the less of something you have, the more important it is. That's just how life works, right? The more of something you have, the less important it becomes. And I think in terms of number of games, it would just increase the value of each individual regular season game more because wins are harder to come by because you just have less opportunities to get them. Does that make sense?
It does, but it's also exponential, right? Reducing a season from 70 games to 82 will not have the same effect as, say, reducing the NFL from 16 to 10. That will have a, even though they're reducing less games, that will have a significantly more dramatic effect. It's exponentially valued. So, I don't know if reducing it to 70, I see your point, but reducing the game to 70, I don't know if that's necessarily going to make the difference needed to fix this issue. And if you reduce it anymore, I think just go back to my point, you're taking away too much history from the game. You're taking away too much. Maybe there's a fine line in there. I do not see that fine line. I don't think it exists, so I don't think. That's why I don't think.
So what is your opinion on how we should help guys stay healthy and incentivize them to play in most regular season games? Because clearly the awards limit this year that they've put on the games didn't work, and maybe it will in the future. But like, when guys are hurt, and if that leaves them out of All NBA, that leaves them out of All NBA, that or MVP rates. Like, that's just gonna be how it is for now on. So, what is your suggestion on how to fix this problem then?
Well, I do want to say this is so far like a one-time outlier season where injuries have been significantly, or at least absences have been significantly more of a problem than in years past. So I want to see before we make any grand conclusions, grand changes, if this is an outlier season or if this is a trend or if this is a problem. Because this is a one-time thing. I mean, we don't got to do anything. We don't got to fix anything. It's fine how it is. And I do think, in theory, the award should work because players' legacies, their paychecks, and everything a basketball player should care about will be impacted by not making all NBA teams. So, in theory, if you care about making money, if you care about how you'll be remembered in the NBA, you're going to want to play in as many games as possible because that's better for you, better for your career in so many different facets. So I do think, in theory, this should work, and this is just kind of an outlier, a bummer of a regular season. In terms of the All-Star game, and I know the argument against this, but I cannot get it out of my head that adding home court advantage to the winning conference of the All-Star game would fix any and all problems. There is a huge argument against it, and I hear it, and truthfully, I don't know if I would like to change because of the argument against it. But you're telling me that players wouldn't care, especially the contending players. You're telling me that, say, KD and Steph Curry in the Warriors dynasty area would not have tried harder in the All-Star game, knowing that, hey, we got to win this because we need home court advantage in the finals, right? They could go out and play half-ass, win 68 regular season games, sitting out every other game, and still get home court advantage no matter what. This adds incentive to the All-Star game, actual stakes to it. So, for like the contenders, the dynasties, especially the teams who want to rest players, I think that is how you incentivize them to say, hey, I know you're a little banged up. I know you're a little tired. I don't care. We need home court advantage. Go show in the All-Star game. Like, there's a huge argument against it, and I'm sure I'm going to hear it from you, and I agree with the argument against it. But I do think that is the best way to incentivize a player to not only play, but play hard.
Yeah, I think that's definitely an option, and I don't disagree with it 100%. The only thing I would hear is if I'm Jokic, right, and I'm the Nuggets, and we make the finals this year, but we lost the All-Star game because Steph, SGA, and a bunch of other Western Conference All-Stars didn't play. You know how pissed I'd be that we don't have home court if we had a better record than the team we're playing in the finals?
Yeah, but to counter that point, do you think SGA and Ant would be more likely to rest because their teams are contenders? Do you think they would be more likely to play in the All-Star game?
Well, no, because they're hurt. Ant's a different story because he's questionable. But like SGA and Steph don't have a choice. They're hurt. They can't play. Like, so
Okay.
I'm just saying, like, and this could happen in the future. Let's say next year, right? The Knicks go to the finals, but Cade Cunningham and Donovan Mitchell are hurt and they can't play in the All-Star game. And that screws the Knicks in the finals. See, that to me just makes no sense. The playoffs should be based on your regular season performance. And again, the All-Star game is not. If it was the Knicks versus the Nuggets in the All-Star game, okay, then that would count towards the finals, right? But it's not. It's the East versus. It's not even the East versus West anymore. It's Team USA versus the world. So I don't even know how you would get around that.
I would reset the format, but yeah.
Yeah, I disagree with that just from an ethical standpoint of the team that makes the finals and doesn't have home court, if they were to have a better record and don't have home court because their conference lost the All-Star game, you know how dumb that sounds when you say it out loud? Like
Yes,
it
sounds dumb. That's why I'm against the idea. That's the argument, and that's why I don't like it.
Here's what I would do though. If you want to make it based on home court, I would move the in-season tournament to after the All-Star break, and I would give the winning conference home court advantage through the in-season tournament and remove the neutral site games in Vegas. That's what I would do. If you want to do that, because the in-season tournament, at least you're playing for money and you're playing for something, right? And we've seen players actually try and, actually willingly want to win that. So if you want to make the All-Star game worth home court advantage in some sort of way, I think the in-season tournament is a perfect middle ground, so to speak, for your idea there. I think the finals, there's way too high stakes in the finals to make the All-Star game that, like, the All-Star game would essentially be a coin toss for the NBA finals. Think about that. Like, that is way too valuable for, in my opinion, that is way too valuable stakes to put on the All-Star game. Especially when we've seen how little people try and how many injuries we've seen this season. I think those two things combined, that's too much. So if you want to do something like that, I would do it for the in-season tournament. Which is another thing about the games, by the way. With the in-season tournament and the extra games, that also is hurting. That is getting more players hurt because they're putting more minutes on their bodies for some players and some teams more than others. And that's why you're seeing the top-end talent. Because the top-end talent is the talent that, in theory, makes it to the end of the in-season tournament.
That's a good point.
And so, if you shortened the season but kept the in-season tournament, you would still have, enough extra games in there too. So, that was the other thing I forgot to mention. But that's just my thoughts on your idea of the All-Star game, East versus West. Do it for the in-season tournament. I think that's a great idea. Because it would incentivize people to try. The stakes would not be too hard because, again, if you lose in the in-season tournament, all right, whatever, great run, but you still have the playoffs to look forward to. If you're the better of the two teams in the NBA Finals and you don't have home court because your conference lost the All-Star game, I would sue the NBA. I would sue the NBA. Like, that is an atrocious. When I say it out loud, it sounds dumber than when I was thinking about it. Like, it just sounds like I can't comprehend it. So, I'm like 100% no on that. And I know people have talked about making the All-Star game more than it is. And I think we just need to get to a point where we just accept the All-Star game for what it is. It's something that the players don't care about anymore. And it's sad, but I think you might need to take an NHL approach and remove it for a couple seasons. And then maybe players will start to care about it more. Like, maybe players will care about it if you just remove it. 2028, no All-Stars this year. Nope, we're just going to do the in-season tournament during the All-Star break, and we're just not going to do All-Stars this year. And maybe players will start to try. I don't know. I don't know what to do for the All-Star game. I really don't. It's tough.
Yeah, the All-Star game seems like kind of a lost cause. I completely agree with what you said. It's too much stakes to add to the All-Star game to have the NBA Finals be centered around what happens over All-Star weekend. I just thought the issue at hand is players aren't playing. That is a way to get players to play. I do like it more for the in-season tournament. I love your idea with that, but we cannot be moving the in-season tournament to the end of the season because that that's too much competitive basketball in a close time span. We're worried about injuries now. That would bring up so much more injury problems, especially for the playoffs. But if we keep the in-season tournament where it is at the beginning of the season, make the it's always an East versus West final. So yeah, just make the winner of that conference gets home court advantage. I like that. I don't hate that at all. That adds stakes to a game that should have significantly more stakes than an ordinary regular season game. I very much like that. I think that's a great middle ground to,
Yeah, and
not.
you don't have to move the whole in-season tournament. You just have to move the neutral site games that were taking place in Vegas. So that's just what, the semifinals and the final. I mean, you could honestly extend All-Star break an extra week and just play those games like a couple days after the All-Star game, if that makes sense. Like, you could essentially just have a longer All-Star break and play those games right after the All-Star game and then restart the season from there. You don't have to essentially put the entire in-season tournament post All-Star break, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Let's move on to kind of a similar subject of teams resting players unnecessarily. Yesterday, the NBA fined two NBA franchises, the Utah Jazz and the Indiana Pacers, for sitting healthy players, essentially was for the reason. The actual reason is, quote, both teams sat healthy players in recent games while noting that moves that compromise its integrity of the game. The Jazz were fined $500,000 and the Pacers were fined $100,000. The Jazz, I mean, they have, ever since they traded for Jaren Jackson Jr., they have notoriously played both him and Markkanen together. First of all, they look like a great team when JJJ and Markkanen played together. They looked really good. But when the fourth quarter would arrive and the Jazz would be in a close game, they would sit all of their starters. They would just sit and they would play their bench, their young players, their bench players, and they would have a closely contested loss. If you're a tanking team, that's exactly what you want. Close, competitive losses. But this is coming at the expense of sitting healthy players, sitting healthy stars in the fourth quarter. And that is never, ever good for the game. That is never what anybody wants to see as an NBA fan. So this is an issue that the league has been trying to solve for a while, the tanking problem. It has reduced lottery odds. It has, it added the in-season tournament to try and incentivize playoff pushes. It's tried to solve tanking for a while, but especially this season when we have as loaded of a draft class, we are noticing tanking becoming a huge problem this season in the NBA. So, yeah, what are your thoughts on this situation as a whole?
Yeah, it's
the tanking in this season.
It's bad, like really bad. But I will give teams credit. The NBA is a business, and James Harden talked about this the other day, which was a different perspective than I think a lot of players have. And I kind of agreed with him that at the end of the day, the NBA, like any other company, is a business, and they're all about money. And teams know that their best chance next year is to lose this year at a certain point in the season. Obviously, like at the beginning of the year, every team wants to win, all that bull crap that you hear from every coach in the press room. But at a certain point in the season, and it feels like this year's earlier than most, teams decide to flip their focus to next year because that is the business model that has proven most successful. And so from that standpoint, there is no stopping that mindset. It is impossible because it is a proven track record time and time again that rebuilding is a fancier word for tanking. It just is. Like this, what Utah is doing is no different than what Memphis is doing. But we're calling Memphis a rebuild because they traded away their players. But Memphis started tanking the moment they traded Desmond Bane to Orlando in the offseason. That was the beginning of Memphis's tank. And now they are just fully riding it with getting rid of Jaren Jackson Jr. This offseason, they will get rid of Ja Morant, and they will have been tanking. You'll look back, and they have been tanking for the last 2 seasons to rebuild for the next 10. So there is no stopping that business model of rebuilding, which is just a fancier word for tanking. Because you cannot rebuild unless you tank. It's just one goes with another. So that to me is something that is unsolvable. How I would try to slow it down, however, is we have to remove the lottery system. Can we just go to a straight record-based draft? because teams like Utah are trying to improve their lottery odds. There's no way in hell the Jazz catch whoever the worst team in the league is for record. There's no way. The Jazz have won too many games. If the lottery were removed, the Jazz would have a top 10 pick, sure. But by tanking and losing as many games as possible, the lottery still gives them a chance at the number 1 pick. That to me is so stupid. And it encourages tanking because teams that know can't compete in the play-in and the playoffs will tank to have an opportunity to get the 1 seed. I mean, the 1 pick, excuse me. We saw it last year with Dallas. Dallas was nowhere near the worst team in the league. But because they tanked at the end of the year after trading Luka and knowing AD was hurt, they were rewarded with the 1 pick. It's terrible. It encouraged tanking. So, in my opinion, the draft lottery needs to go. It needs to go. And, secondly, I'm going to double down. You need to shorten the amount of games. Because the less games in a season, the less time a team has to tank. Now, I know there's kind of a second side to that, is the less time you have, the less time you have to push for the playoffs. However, with less time and less games, the gap between everyone should, in theory, be smaller, which would then incentivize people to play. But I want to reiterate my point I started with, is there is no stopping this. There is no fixing it. Like, the All-Star game is more fixable than tanking, and I'm serious when I say that. There is no fixing tanking. It's impossible. You can find the Jazz all they want. They're going to laugh in your face and continue to do it because they know it gives them the best chance next season and the year after that and the year after that. Okay? It is a proven business model that works. It works. We've seen it before in every professional sport, not just basketball. It works. I would suggest removing the lottery, and I would suggest shortening the season. Whether those would work, I have no idea, but those are just my thoughts.
Yeah, I do not think the lottery would work. The NFL doesn't have a lottery, and we still see tanking as a huge story of every season. And it's not just tanking, it is teams racing to have the outright worst record. It's not teams trying to have one of the worst records. It's teams starting the year or losing the first 3 games and are like, all right, season's a wash, let's lose the rest of them. This isn't a team settling for a 5-12 record at the end of the year. This is a team that is trying actively to go 2-15, 3-14 to have the number 1 pick. So my question is it more entertaining to see a team win, I don't know, 30 games as part of their tank, or is it even worse to see them win 10 games? I think one would be more significantly entertaining than the other. There's a draft in every North American sports league, and it has a lot of pros, but I think, like you said, it is unfixable because the draft presents a fundamental issue. The worst teams in every North American sports league, their best chance is to suck, so they have a chance at the best young talent. So that is the flaw in the draft. However, a draft is absolutely needed. Because when you look at the Premier League out in Europe, and they don't have a draft, you see the top 4 teams will win the league year in and year out because those are the only 4 teams that can afford the best players. You think the Lakers get every superstar now? Imagine a league without a draft. How many stars would go to New York, would go to LA, would go to Boston, would go to Golden State? It would be a monopoly of those 4 or 5 teams at the top every year. Maybe occasionally, every once in a while, we'd get a Cinderella run of a smaller market team. But there is no parity in any sports league without drafts. You will see the same teams year in and year out compete. And I think that, for me, is a huge reason why I don't like following the Premier League, because it feels very predictable. It's why I don't follow La Liga in Spain, because it feels very predictable. Barcelona and Real Madrid are going to win every year. In the NBA, the draft allows the distribution of talent better than it does in leagues without a draft. And so I don't think, removing the draft or touching the draft at all from the NBA, I think that has got to stay. I think, there's not much you can do about that without raising a number of other issues that would make the league even more unwatchable.
Yeah, so I understand what you're saying. The draft obviously needs to stay. The only professional sport with no parity other than the Premier League is baseball, but that's because they don't have a salary cap. So that also hurts them. Here's my thoughts on why, more thoughts. You mentioned the NFL. We've seen countless times where teams that aren't in the playoffs still try their ass off in Week 18. I think I mean, you're a Packers fan. You remember that Lions-Packers game, Aaron Rodgers' last game. The Lions had no reason to win that game. None. They could have tanked, and yet they won. This year, the Giants, on pace to have the number 1 pick. What do? Win their last 2 games for no reason whatsoever. None. So, again, yes, there's tanking in the NFL. I'm not saying that. But when's the last time you saw someone fined $500,000 in the NFL for tanking? This is a yearly occurrence in the NBA. It is bad. It is awful. And it is because more than 2 to 3 or 4 teams have a chance at the number 1 pick. Double-digit teams have a chance at the number 1 pick. Okay, so by removing the lottery, you're going to cut down the number of teams that can even contend for the top 3 picks. It's math. Like, to me, it's just math. Like,
it's not an issue with picks. It's an issue with player talent disparity. The difference between the first pick in the NFL and the 10th pick is not nearly as noticeable as a talent gap as the first overall pick in the NBA versus the 10th overall pick. That is the reason that teams want to take, because it's a lot more valuable to get a top 4 pick in the NBA than it is in the NFL. You get the 5th pick in the NFL, it's not the end of the world. You fall out of the lottery, or you fall out of the top 4, get the 5th pick in the NBA, like the Washington Wizards and the Utah Jazz did last year. That sets your franchise back years. That delays your rebuild. That extends it. It's not that teams have a chance at the number 1 pick. It's that missing the top tier talent in the NBA is a huge setback. Whereas in the NFL, it's not as bad. It's not as huge of a story.
And to me, that's tough luck. I don't care. I don't care that the draft pool in the NFL and the NBA is different. I really don't. I still think that if you removed the draft lottery, teams in the Utah Jazz's range of records would not. It would benefit them to lose games to improve their draft pick. Yes, it would. But they still have a chance at the number 1 pick, which is why they're trying so hard to tank. The tanking would still happen, yes.
We'll move on from the tanking category. Well,
whoa. I'm not done talking. I'm not done. I'm not done yet. I mean, did I cut out or something?
You might have. I don't know.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I was talking when you cut me off. Sorry. If I cut off,
my bad.
if I cut off, then sorry. But I'm fully in the middle of what I'm saying.
I didn't hear. I thought you paused. My bad.
No, that's all good. Anyway, I still think the lottery, it just incentivizes too many teams to tank. That's all. Again, what I said at the beginning still reigns true. There is no stopping it. It is impossible. Tanking is a business model in professional sports because you're either good enough to contend or you're bad enough to rebuild. And we always say the teams in the middle are in no man's land. That's the worst spot to be. And then last thing I want to say is you talked about what would be more exciting, a team winning 10 games or a team winning 40. Well, for that one particular season, yes, 40. But if you're a fan of that team that wins 30 games, I think you would be more excited for next season if you had won 10 and win and get the number 2 pick. Would that be fair to say? You would be more excited for next year if you won 10 games the year before than 30 to 40?
Yes, but you're not, the thing with the lottery, you're not guaranteed the number 2 pick. That is why it disincentivizes tanking. It's the complete opposite does the NBA. Getting a bad record in the NBA does not guarantee you a top 3 pick. The 2 worst teams in the league last year didn't get top 4 picks. That disincentivizes tanking. You cannot be the worst team and be guaranteed a good pick.
Because it gives slightly below average to bad teams more incentivizing to tanking because they know they have just as good of a chance as the worst teams in the league. So yes, it disincentivizes it from the bottom 4 teams to tank, yes. But the next 4 to 5 teams in that range, it gives them all the reason to tank because they know they have just as good a shot at the number 1 pick as all those other teams. Yes, there's no guarantees, but again, like I said earlier, it's just math. Because there's a percentage put on each pick, more teams have a chance to get that pick, meaning more teams will be incentivized to tank and increase their chances. It's just math. It's just math. That's really all I have to say, and it's sad that a third of the league is punting on this season before next before the All-Star break. It's embarrassing. I feel bad for fans that pay for tickets to watch some of these teams play basketball. It's embarrassing for the league, and it's worse than any other sport, which is why I had to say something about you comparing it to the NFL, because I don't remember the last time someone was punished for tanking in another sport like it is in the NBA. I really can't remember a time that happened.
Yeah. Last thing I want to say is, again, I want to see if this year specifically is an outlier. Because this year specifically has been a really bad year for tanking. It has been a thing in years past, but this is also a year with a historically strong draft class. We weren't talking about tanking as much in 2024. Risa Shea was the number 1 overall pick because there wasn't much worth tanking for. 2027, the draft class is expected to be weak, so I'm very curious to see if it is still an issue then. Moving on kind of towards tanking, we have the Utah Jazz, who they just traded for Jaren Jackson Jr. Unfortunately, or maybe fortunately for the Jazz, if that's what they're going for, Triple J is expected to undergo surgery to remove a growth in his left knee and will be missing the rest of the season. So, the Jazz should be worse off. I did say unfortunately, but again, maybe that's what the Jazz want. Maybe that's a good thing. Because Jackson was quoted saying he didn't feel any pain, but team doctors deemed it necessary to remove. So whether or not it's necessary, I mean, it's the Utah Jazz doctors. Their goal is tanking right now. I'm not sure how necessary this necessary really was. But Utah Jazz just traded 3 first-round picks for Triple J. We saw a few games with him and Markkanen. They looked really good, aside from the fourth quarters where they were benched. And now he's missing the rest of the year. So this kind of does go back to tanking. But, yeah, what do you think this does for the Jazz the rest of the year? What do you think their goals should be?
It's good for Utah. I don't see this now. I mean, they can now lose games easier than before because their best player's out. So, I mean, it's good for Utah. I hope Jaren Jackson's all right. I hope this isn't. I know this is a real injury because he's needing surgery. But imagine if this was like not a major injury and this was kind of an Anthony Davis situation where they're just shutting him down for the year. Like, that was another interesting situation. The Wizards came out and said Anthony Davis is out for the year, and then 3 days later they came out and said, actually, Anthony Davis might play. Because they realized when they said he's out for the year, that's just a blatant attempt at tanking. Did you see that? Where their front office came out and, like, it's that type of stuff. Like, how dumb do you have to be to just say you don't, Anthony Davis, we don't know his timetable for return. Just say that, and it'll disguise what you're doing a little bit more. Here's the other thing I actually completely forgot to mention. The NBA recently had a massive gambling scandal this offseason that was utterly tied to tanking games last year. How many people do you think are making money on Lauri Markkanen and Jaren Jackson Jr.'s unders this year? That we don't know that right now we don't know about. But in 8 years, when another scandal comes out, how bad?
First of all, you make a great point. This is free money. Why have we not been doing this? Marketing under should be free.
Yeah.
Why? What are we doing?
Well, the books have adjusted, and his lines are super low. Like, you can't get him at his normal lines because, but still, people with insider information inside the Jazz organization know exactly how many minutes Lauri Markkanen's playing. And you don't think that information gets around. Like, yes, I think people will learn from the mistake of Terry Rozier and Chauncey Billups, yes. But those incidences of Terry Rozier not playing any minutes last year and people betting on him was entirely, that is tanking. That is Terry Rozier saying he's going to play and then pulling himself out. That is a form of tanking. So, again, with the Wizards, right, you can bet unders out the wazoo if you want. Because who knows how many minutes Koulibaly's going to be playing. Who knows how many minutes. The Pacers, Siakam, yeah, he might just play 20 minutes tonight for no reason. So I think for the NBA, it is incredibly bad timing that tanking is happening at an all-time bad rate right after you had a gambling scandal that the FBI was investigating about tanking. You know how bad that looks for the league? And I completely forgot to mention that earlier.
That's a great point.
So I wanted to mention that before we switch topics because who knows? In 10 years, are we going to be talking about people making money off Lauri Markkanen this year, like they were Terry Rozier last year? Like I don't know. Maybe not. I don't know. But that's another problem with tanking is you've already have the FBI up your ass about gambling and whatnot, and I don't know how much of that is solely the NBA's fault. I think that's more of a gambling addiction problem more than anything else. But it is, again, you would be ignorant to say it's not tied to tanking because it is. It's the easiest way to make money, and I just wanted to mention that. As a sports bettor myself, I've noticed people mentioning the gambling aspect of the NBA's tanking problem, and it's true. It's real. Like, it's not made up. It's not conspiracy theories. Like, it is real, and we saw it with the FBI investigation this summer.
Yeah, I do think this is more of a sports gambling issue than an NBA issue. But like you said, it would be ignorant to say the two are not codependent or the two do not affect each other because they most definitely do. So yeah, that's an angle I didn't even think about. That was a great point. One more piece of news that I want to touch on before we get into our game standings reactions. Arguably the biggest piece of news. The NBA for years, there have been rumors about expansion. And a report came out a few days ago that the NBA is likely to add 2 expansion franchises to the league this summer, with Seattle and Las Vegas being the likely 2 cities to get NBA franchises. Personally, I think expansion has been long overdue. I think this is a great thing for the NBA. And to talk about tanking, I think this is another huge thing because only the top 4 picks are taken through the lottery, which means that 5 and 6 will be automatically if Seattle and Las Vegas get teams, they get the 5 and 6 picks. That's it. That's settled in the dust. So if you're one of the bad teams and you're trying to secure one of those top 4 picks, yeah, you would need to really suck because if you don't get a top 4 pick, the best you're getting is number 7. So that just might be another angle to take on tanking. But let's talk about the expansion at itself for a little bit. What do you think about this league expansion? Do you like it? Do you think there should be another city considered? What are your thoughts?
I like it personally because I think Seattle and Las Vegas are great sports cities. I think what we've seen with the Golden Knights and the Raiders in Las Vegas in terms of crowds and just overall participation, it's been great. Vegas is very much a city like Los Angeles where teams that visit there on the road, their fans like to travel to Vegas. Like, there's no hiding that. Like, Los Angeles and New York and Vegas are tourist destinations that if you're a fan of the Jacksonville Jaguars, you might take a trip out to Las Vegas to watch the Raiders, right? So I think that holds true with the NBA too. If you like the Grizzlies, well, let's just, get out of Tennessee for a weekend and go to Vegas, right? Like, that to me is good for the league. It would get more fans to more cities. And Seattle obviously has a track record of being a great basketball city. So that to me is good. I hope that the playoffs stay the same in terms of number of teams that make
Agreed.
it. I know the NFL just added a 7th team, which in my opinion, looking back on it, is stupid. I like a 7th seed in the NFL, I think has only won 1 game so far in 8 years. So, I don't like that. I think the NBA I've already advocated the play-in tournament. Like, I don't like how many teams can make the play-in tournament. And we've seen that. Like, the 9 and 10 seed, I don't know how many times one of them has made the playoffs in the play-in tournament. I would assume it's more than once, like the NFL, but we don't need to extend the play-in tournament to 11 teams or 12 teams just because we added 2 teams. So I hope the playoff format doesn't change because of this. Those are really my only thoughts on this. Yeah.
As a Packers fan, whose team has been the 7th seed in the NFC the past 3 years, heavily disagree with you. I think the 7th seed is the greatest thing the NFL has ever done. All jokes aside, I do agree with you. I do hope the playoff format for the NBA doesn't change. Play-in, we can agree to disagree there, but I think right now they have something that we can agree is entertaining, it's competitive, it's fair. I think they should just keep everything the same. And I'm very excited for this because I think the talent in the NBA has never been as high as it is, and there are so many deserving NBA players who are not currently on rosters. I think of Mac McClung, who gets brought out every year to the dunk contest. He's not doing it this year, but the last 3 years he got brought onto the dunk contest. He'll play in game 82 of the regular season and put up 30 points, maybe close to a triple-double. I know he's done that a few times, but yet you can't find a team during the regular season? It doesn't make sense to me. I think Mac McClung definitely deserves a home, and adding these two teams adds 30 additional roster spots, including 4 more two-way contracts. 34 total additional roster spots for players. That is incredible. I love that for the league. I love that for the players who will now get a chance to play and showcase their talent, have a chance to develop. Like I said, I think the league's long overdue for an expansion, and I hope it does happen this summer. The official word used was likely. So this isn't a guarantee or a certainty by any means yet, but I hope it does happen, and I would like it to happen sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't see how this move could hurt the league. And again, the league, it's a business. It's all about money. More teams, more games, more money. It's simple.
All right, move on from that. We'll get into just our reaction to the standings, games around the league. I want to start off with yesterday's Lakers game. Not just because of the score, although the Lakers did. What did the Lakers do yesterday? Oh, I'm not even talking about the Lakers. I'm talking about LeBron James because he set the NBA record for the oldest player to record a triple-double at 41 years old, which is pretty damn cool, I gotta say. He finished with 26, 10, and 12, shooting 10 of 20 on the night. LeBron doing GOAT things, and the Lakers beat the Mavericks by 20 without Luka Doncic. Which, by the way, Luka missing that game just against the Mavericks sucks in general, to the point about injuries and resting players we've been talking about all day. This was a nationally televised game, and Luka missing it against Dallas was just took away a lot of the excitement from the game. Regardless, it was still fun to see LeBron James look like at least a portion like his vintage self, his all-around dominant self. Shout out LeBron, man.
Oh yeah, I mean that was an awesome game. I didn't watch any of it because, and this is so sad. Luka and Flag didn't play, so I didn't watch the game. I don't care to watch Rui Hachimura and Najee Marshall on my television. Like, I really do not. So it's sad that I missed LeBron's triple double because the guys I want to watch aren't there. But he's the second greatest player of all time, and there's a reason he hasn't retired yet. That's because he's still playing at an elite level. And I think LeBron, when he needs to, he can turn it on. The Lakers, before this win, I think they've been sliding recently in the standings all the way down to 6th. I think they got jumped by Minnesota earlier last week. So the Lakers, man, I'm still worried about them. Like, they don't play enough defense for me. They didn't make enough moves at the deadline to get better, in my opinion. I think they're a first-round exit, in my opinion. I wouldn't be surprised if Phoenix... I wouldn't be surprised to see them slide into the play-in tournament, to be serious with you. But I am happy for LeBron. He's got a lot of flack for sticking around, and I think people just hate greatness because they wish, they could attain the greatness that LeBron has, and he is one of one. We'll never see a player like LeBron again, so... I'm happy for him. That was an awesome performance last night, and I wish that Cooper Flag and Luka were playing because maybe I would have got to witness it.
Yeah, like I said, Flag and Luka not playing took away a lot of excitement for the game, but and it wasn't really a close game the entire way. It was close the first half, and then the Lakers kind of ran away, but still fun to see LeBron go off nonetheless. On Wednesday, the Clippers beat the Rockets 105-102 on a Kawhi Leonard buzzer-beating game winner. I have been high on the return of Kawhi Leonard all year. I have called him an MVP candidate, and his performance against the Rockets, I think, has only heightened those discussions. I'm seeing the conversations start to pick up on Instagram, putting Kawhi in the MVP conversations. So. As somebody, I've been a fan of Kawhi since he was a San Antonio Spur. He has been one of my favorite players in the league. So I personally have, and I like seeing him go off personally, but also just as a fan of the NBA, like I've been saying all year, fun to see players pick back up, at least for a few games or maybe an extended stretch, look like their prime self again. And Kawhi Leonard has done just that this year. Someone get this man his first MVP award.
Yeah, he's great. The Clippers are not great, which is why he won't win the MVP, but he's great. Still, I'm trying to think where I would place him in the MVP race right now. Definitely top 10. I'm not going to disrespect him. I'd say probably top 7. I don't know if I can go top 5. I think I'd probably go top 7. I still think
Okay.
I still think Jokic is eligible, right?
Jokic still eligible, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
Shea is still eligible, correct?
Shea. I'll give you Cade and Jaylen Brown as well.
Okay, Luka still eligible? Because I still think he's more of an MVP candidate than Kawhi.
I think he is, but you're talking about the Lakers potentially sliding to the play-in seed. I think if the Lakers were to slide, the Clippers would rise, and if that's the case, I'm not giving Luka the award over Kawhi.
Okay, if the Clippers were higher than the Lakers in the standings, I would agree with you. However, for now they're not, so I'm still going to give the edge to Luka, and that would probably put Kawhi at 6. So top 6. I was pretty close. Said top 7. I didn't
count Jokic and Luka because they're almost close to being ineligible, but yeah, I guess including them.
If Jokic is eligible at the end of the season, he will most definitely be higher on my rankings than Kawhi.
Absolutely.
So I'm still gonna give him the benefit of the doubt now. The injuries. The injuries are crazy though with the MVP market because we were talking about Giannis and Wemby and like just a month ago we were talking about those guys and now neither one of them. I don't think either one of them are eligible. Maybe Wemby is, but he's kind of slowed down recently. He did just cook the Lakers the other night. That was awesome too. 40 points in 25 minutes. That was crazy.
Including 25 in the first quarter. Absurd.
Then proceed to get locked down by Draymond Green the night after, but it's all good. But he still won, so good for him. And didn't Castle have like a 40-point triple-double recently too? Like he went off recently.
Yeah, Stephon Castle went off for his first 40-point game of his career.
And a triple-double too. That was crazy. So yeah, another thing I wanted to point out is Jared McCain. How about Jared McCain, man? Balling for the Thunder. I've got a couple thoughts on this. One, I want to make just a classic prediction here. He's going to win Sixth Man of the Year before he leaves Oklahoma City. I'm predicting that right now. I'm predicting that right now. He will win a Sixth Man of the Year award before he leaves Oklahoma City. And because I'm making that prediction, I also think that AJ Mitchell is going to be moved soon. I don't know if that's in the offseason. I don't know if that's before the deadline. But in my opinion, Jared McCain took AJ Mitchell's role as the sixth man on this Thunder's team. He's a better catch-and-shoot three-point shooter. He's better off-the-dribble shooter. The only thing, in my opinion, that AJ Mitchell does better is finishing around the rim. Other than that, I think Jared McCain is just the better overall player, and I think he fits what the Thunder want to do more than AJ Mitchell.
Mitchell's definitely a better playmaker too, but yeah, the players are very comparable in skills at the very least. McCain very well might have taken Mitchell's role, I'll give you that. I did predict AJ Mitchell to win the Sixth Man of the Year, so if McCain is just taking Mitchell's role, I completely agree with you. Yeah, why would I not? I think the Oklahoma City Thunder specifically have a great team setup for the sixth man of that team to take home the award at the end of the year. Hell, I might be sitting here in a couple of months predicting McCain to take home the award next year. I definitely want to put that past me. So the only issue I have with that is I'm not ready to sit here and say that Jared McCain is definitively better than AJ Mitchell. I think the two are very close, and the two they're very close in comparison. It's definitely not a contest.
All right,
you can very well make an argument for either one, and it would have to be here now. I'm not ready to sit here and say McCain is better after 3 games with the Thunder.
Yeah,
let's give him to the end of the year at least.
Okay,
and then see how the two players look.
Well, okay. By that argument, let's give AJ Mitchell till the end of the year to see if he still looks this good, because he's been a one-year wonder, whereas McCain last year was on pace to win Rookie of the Year before he got hurt, and now we're seeing him again at this form. So
how did you just knock AJ Mitchell for being a one-year wonder where McCain played less games?
No,
McCain has played less games in his NBA career than AJ Mitchell has this season.
yes, and he's played better he's played better in those games than AJ Mitchell. Yes, that's true.
Oh my God, that's an unbelievable take.
Alex, the Thunder gave up a first-round pick for this guy. You would not give up a first-round pick for AJ Mitchell. That's a fact.
You wouldn't? I would.
What?
For AJ Mitchell, sixth man of the year? Yeah.
What?
AJ Mitchell, I think, levels better than McCain. McCain is a better scorer, and that is it.
What? You would give up a first-round pick and multiple seconds for AJ Mitchell? You would give up the same draft package for AJ Mitchell that you did Jared McCain? Really?
Yes. Definitely. I think they overpaid for Jared McCain, if anything. Considering Jared McCain wasn't playing at all for Philadelphia.
This is his second year. It's his second year.
Okay.
Jared McCain could be an all-star. He could be an all-star. That's how good he is.
McCain. He could be good. Yes, he could be good. However, look at his role on Philadelphia. He was getting DNPs. They were playing Quentin Grimes over him. You gonna pay more for Quentin Grimes than you are Jared McCain?
He was coming off a significant injury. He was coming off a significant injury.
And you know what? You just said Jared McCain's in his second year. You know what year AJ Mitchell's in? Year 2.
No, I don't.
And he's a better player. He's a better player than McCain, and he does not have any injury risk that McCain has. He has everything you just said to credit AJ Mitchell's a one-season wonder. AJ Mitchell was just traded for a first-round pick. AJ Mitchell hasn't been traded in his career because he's a value to the team he was drafted to, right? He doesn't need to be traded because he gets playing time.
We both agreed that was a bad trade for the Sixers. So don't act like they traded him because
it was
don't act like they traded him because they thought they had no use for him, and we both agreed that was dumb. So
no, I said
and also
playing Quentin Grimes over him.
The difference between a one-year wonder in AJ Mitchell and Jared McCain is Jared McCain has now done what I've seen. Again, very small sample size, but he's done it with 2 different seasons, 2 different teams, and he's just now coming off a major injury. And he's still absolutely balling. He's balling.
Okay, I don't know if we're counting 13 points, 12 points, 7 points, and 5 points balling because those are Jared
How many
McCain's
minutes is he playing? How many minutes is he
games.
playing? How many minutes is he playing?
24, 22, 14,
Great.
and 14.
Yes, and what team does he play
So,
for?
AJ Mitchell,
Does he play for
Oklahoma City Thunder.
the best
AJ
team in the
Mitchell
league? Is that
plays
correct?
more minutes,
The best team in the league.
Averages more points, averages more rebounds, more assists, shoots better, defends better. He literally does every single thing better on Oklahoma City than Jared McCain.
McCain.
And yes, Jared McCain is new. He is
coming
new to
off
the team.
coming off an injury, a major injury. He tore his Achilles, if I'm not mistaken. A major injury.
He tore his meniscus, first of all.
Okay, he tore his... Okay, like I said, if I'm not mistaken, I thought he tore his Achilles. He tore his meniscus. Jared McCain is a better basketball player than AJ Mitchell, and I will personally die on that hill. I will die on that hill. Jared McCain was on pace to win Rookie of the Year last year before he got hurt. That's pretty impressive.
And then he got hurt. AJ Mitchell was on pace to win Sixth Man of the Year before they traded for Jared McCain.
Why do you think they traded for Jared McCain? Is it because AJ Mitchell was so good?
First and second round pick.
That's a lot in the NBA, is it not? That's a lot.
Really, the 30th and the 60th overall pick for Jared McCain. Yeah, holy shit, we're really giving up the mother load over here.
All right, if Sam Presti did it, it was a good move. First of all, I think we could both agree with that. And 2, they obviously traded for Jared McCain for a reason. Correct? They didn't trade for him to sit on the bench behind AJ Mitchell. That's for sure. Correct?
Well, AJ Mitchell's off the bench. McCain will be coming off the bench. Yes, you are completely wrong.
Yes.
There. He and Mitchell will both be coming off the bench. Mitchell, right now, is the 6th man of Oklahoma City. And until something changes, that is going to remain the case because AJ Mitchell is a better player.
Okay. Okay. Sure.
Okay, you want to say Jared McCain has been balling, right? He has averaged literally
watch him play. Watch him.
Games.
Do you watch him play? That's my first question. Do you watch him play basketball? Other than read the box score, do you watch him play basketball?
Okay. My follow-up question: when's the last time Oklahoma City Thunder been nationally televised?
The other
you haven't watched Jared McCain play basketball.
last night against Milwaukee. Last night against Milwaukee, national television, Topic return on Amazon. Yes, last night.
And you literally just said you didn't. Okay, all right. All right.
What?
Did you not sit there and say, "Oh, I didn't watch Mavericks Lakers because of injuries"?
I didn't. What does that have anything to do with Bucks Thunder?
And be honest.
No, I didn't. I didn't watch it. I didn't watch it, but I know they were on national television.
You cannot bash me. Do you watch Jared McCain? When you
it was a question.
Have never seen Jared McCain for the Thunder.
What do you mean?
yourself has never seen him play for the
He
Thunder.
played against the Lakers on national television like 5 nights ago when I watched that game. Yes, in J-Dub's return. I watched that game. I asked you a question.
The trade deadline was 5 nights ago. The trade deadline was on Sunday. All right.
Maybe it wasn't 5 nights ago. Let me look at exactly what date and time that game took place on Amazon. Because I know I've watched Jared McCain play basketball, and I asked you a simple question in which you still have not answered. Have you watched Jared McCain play for the Thunder?
No, I haven't. Neither have you.
Yes.
So you're
how can you say neither have you? I don't understand that. I literally have watched him play. All right, here we go. On Monday, February 9th, that was 4 days ago, excuse me, the Thunder played at the Lakers on Amazon Prime. In his debut game, he scored 7 points in 13 minutes, 3 of 6 from the field. Yes, I watched him play.
Really lighting up the box score there.
Again, do you watch him play or you just watch the box score? Again, that's my point. He's better than what his stats are because he's coming off a major injury and he's not playing a full complement of minutes. That's all I'm saying. And I didn't mean to offend you by asking you if you have watched him play for the Thunder. That was not my intent by that question. And I'm sorry if I offended you by asking you that question.
Literally, the same thing you are praising McCain for, though, you are discrediting AJ Mitchell for. Why are you praising McCain for his impact beyond the box score for putting up these numbers coming off the bench when you're saying, oh, they traded for Jared McCain because AJ Mitchell wasn't good enough off the bench? You are praising one player while discrediting another for literally the same thing.
Okay.
Both of them are bench players. Both of them are bench players at best right now.
Correct. And if I said that AJ Mitchell wasn't good enough, I apologize. That is not what I meant. What I meant to say is that Jared McCain was traded because he's a better player than AJ Mitchell. Just because he's better doesn't mean AJ Mitchell's all of a sudden bad. That's not what I was trying to say. And if that's how I came across, I apologize. That's not what I meant to say. And not how I meant for it to come across. But a player can still be good and still be worse than other people. Case in point is...
Yeah, I just
case in point...
Well, no. Sorry, I agree with that point. I just disagree that McCain is better than Mitchell.
And that's fine. You can disagree with that. But I wasn't trying to disrespect AJ Mitchell. I was more praising Jared McCain and what I think his future in Oklahoma City looks like. That's all I was trying to do. And I guess I disrespected AJ Mitchell, but in my opinion, AJ Mitchell is nothing special. And I think Jared McCain could be really good. Like, he could be really good. So, yeah, that's just my opinion.
I got to flip to my hat. I've been saying... I said it in an episode earlier this year. I think AJ Mitchell's a future all-star. I guess I'm just higher on him.
And I don't know. Yeah, no, that's perfectly okay. I would love you, as soon as you can, watch the Thunder and watch Jared McCain play basketball. Seriously, like, he's good. Really good. And I want him to get more minutes. And there's a reason they gave up a first-round pick and 2 second-round picks for him. That's a fact.
Yeah, but you're giving him the 30th pick and 260th pick, or something along the lines of that. It's not picks of value. It's not something that the Oklahoma City Thunder needed. They weren't going to get any better by adding the 27th overall pick than they were by getting Jared McCain for it. That is why it was a good value for the Thunder. It's not necessarily the value that Jared McCain has. Is that, the 27th pick, we weren't going to get anyone valuable with that. Might as well get Jared McCain. He's better than whoever they would have gotten. That is why I think it was a good trade. I don't necessarily think it was a bad trade for Philadelphia because McCain wasn't getting time. There were 3-4 guards that were getting playing time over McCain. But for the Thunder to give up so little and get a player, like you said, McCain does have a high ceiling. We have not seen that high ceiling yet, but theoretically, it is there. He was the Rookie of the Year favorite. If he can get back to looking like that, then yeah, we're going to be looking back at this trade as an absolute steal for Oklahoma City. But they made the trade not because they value McCain, but because they didn't really give up that much. McCain is better than they would have gotten with the 27th pick.
All right. Every player that Sam Presti acquires, he sees value in. So I'm just going to stop that argument there. He definitely saw value in Jared McCain when he traded for him. That's a fact. That is an absolute 100% fact. And
let me bring up a case. Gordon Hayward.
Yeah. What about Gordon Hayward?
Gordon Hayward was traded from Charlotte to Oklahoma City and then retired at the end of the year because he was absolutely washed and provided nothing of substance to Oklahoma City. So yeah, every general manager, when they trade for somebody, sees something of value. That is why you pull the trigger. That's the most generic argument to make. That's me saying the grass is green, the sky is blue.
Right? Yeah, but we have praised Sam.
Yeah, but Presti, yes, but he's not a demigod that gets it right every time, a.k.a. Gordon Hayward. He makes wrong decisions, and he does it his fair share of times as well.
Over the last multiple seasons, 2 or 3 seasons, has Sam Presti really made any glaring mistakes?
If they didn't win a championship, I would argue trading a first-round pick for Gordon Hayward likely would be a mistake.
Okay.
And even Gordon Hayward did not help them win at all.
All right. Here's the most valuable people in the Thunder organization. Shea 1, Sam Presti 2. Okay, that's a 1-2.
Agreed.
So, and you and me,
J-Dub might be up there, but I'll give you that. I'll hear you.
You and me have praised Sam Presti in the last 6 to 7 months about he's the greatest GM in the NBA and it's not close and he's amazing at making all these moves and whatnot. And so now, so again, conveniently that you bring up Gordon Hayward now, why wouldn't you bring him up then? It does, again, I just don't understand that. That's way in the past. Sam Presti is past Gordon Hayward. He's moved past that. Way past that.
Was I sitting here saying, did I sit here and say Sam Presti's a bad GM? No. Like you said, I said he's the greatest GM in the NBA. But he is not perfect. He is very capable of making mistakes. And to say, oh, Presti traded for McCain because he saw value, so that means McCain's going to be great.
Yes.
He saw value in Gordon Hayward, and Gordon Hayward was not great.
Because I trust Sam Presti. I trust Sam Presti. I trust his eyes and his basketball knowledge because he is creating a dynasty in Oklahoma City. So yes, that is where my thought process is. I trust his ability to find young and up-and-coming talent and turn them into superstars. He's done that his entire career. And Gordon Hayward, to your point, was not a young and up-and-coming superstar. He was a washed old veteran who ended up retiring. Correct. Yes, I would not hold that against Sam Presti, and I certainly would not hold that against Jared McCain. I would not hold Gordon Hayward's final season of his career against Jared McCain.
I don't hold it against either of them, but you're talking about Sam Presti, this demigod, who if he acquires a player, the player instantly is a superstar. That's how you're talking about Presti as.
Yeah, that's what he did. That's what he did for Shea and J-Dub. Yes, that's what he did for Shea and.
Because we haven't been bashing Chet Holmgren all year.
I didn't say Chet. I said Shea and J-Dub. I didn't say Chet.
So he turns 2 players into a superstar, and so we can do that for Jared McCain.
Yes. That's 2 more than a lot of GMs. That's 2 more than a lot of GMs. I never said he couldn't. I said there's a reason he traded for Jared McCain, and I'm excited to see what he has for the future. And I would argue that he already has done it with AJ Mitchell. So that's a third guy that he's turned into a star.
So now we're calling AJ Mitchell a star?
No. I'm saying he's turned him into one. Off the bench?
He's turned AJ Mitchell into a star, but AJ Mitchell's not a star. I need that explained.
No, sorry. I misspoke. You're right. That doesn't make sense. If you want to count AJ Mitchell, which is what I said, that would be a third star. That's what I said. Yes. Which would only help my case talking about Jared McCain becoming better than AJ Mitchell. In which my case, I think he already is better. But
why? All right. You know what? Let's move on from the Thunder because we've been talking about for Jared McCain and AJ Mitchell far longer than I've ever anticipated doing so in my lifetime. The last thing or team I want to make note of is the Charlotte Hornets. Partially because of their recent string of success, they recently won 9 games in a row, breaking their franchise record, and then they followed that up after their loss with a win against the Hawks. But their loss against the Pistons was noticeable because we saw the greatest fight in the NBA of the last 5 years. The Hornets and the Pistons threw down. And let me just say, I don't care. I was entertained. I don't care if it's good for basketball. I don't care whether
It's great for
the league can
basketball.
punish him, whatever. Yeah, great for basketball. I agree. I
It's
was
great for
entertained as a fan.
basketball.
It's what the league needed. It needs some ferocity. It needs some rivalry, and I would love to see a Charlotte Detroit playoff matchup. There were suspensions announced for this sequence. I think Isaiah Stewart got the heaviest suspension with 7 games. I'll go ahead and double check that. Just
Yeah,
so...
he did. That's correct. Bridges and Diabate got 4, and Duran got 2, I think.
Yeah, so those are the 4 players that got suspended. So I don't care about the suspensions at all. I think it was great for the league, and I think the players all got their, money's worth in their suspensions. Isaiah Stewart definitely did in terms of coming off the bench and running full speed at Miles Bridges. But for the Charlotte Hornets, who, before their 9-game winning streak, they were among the worst teams in the league, right? This is a team that just kind of recently started learning how to win. For this team that recently just got positive momentum to lose 2 essential contributors to this winning streak, that is not good for the Hornets. You finally built a positive momentum for the first time in like a decade, it feels like, and then two of your starting 5 get suspended. Definitely not what the Hornets wanted to see after the recent string of success they've had. So we'll have to see it. It'll be interesting to see if they can still float. Float during this time.
They're currently 1-0 since the suspensions, so I think they just beat Atlanta last night or 2 nights ago. They lost the game against Detroit, obviously, once they missed their players. But since they were suspended, they won their first game against Atlanta, and Atlanta's nothing special. But to your point about a Detroit-Charlotte first-round matchup, I would love to see that personally. However, broomsticks would be in full force. But it would be an entertaining 4 games. But it would...
Okay, I think Charlotte could get 1. They could make a big push into 5, maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Probably not, but maybe.
I think we would be talking about broomsticks in Game 4. I'll just put it at that. I think it would be 3-0 pretty quickly, but it would be an entertaining 4 games for sure. And it's great for basketball. Like, do we need guys getting knocked out and concussed because they're going to fight? No. But obviously, like, nobody's cared about a Hornets game more than that one because 1, they were playing the best team in the East, and 2, there was a huge fight, and it was awesome, and the crowd was going crazy. If I was in person for that, that would be awesome. And I love me some hockey. I love when you just allow guys to just hit each other in the face when they got problems with each other. It's great. It's awesome. And basketball, for some reason, you can't do that. Whatever. But I think this type of stuff is good. It shows the emotions players play with. The Isaiah Stewart suspension, I have to think that was a previous offender type of suspension. Because him and Miles Bridges were going at it, and the fact that he got 3 more games than Bridges, I think is just purely a previous offender type of punishment for him.
Stewart came running off the bench, though. He wasn't on the floor. Bridges was a player on the floor actively playing. But Stewart is like Draymond Green in that, yeah.
But
he's kind of developed a reputation for this.
In terms of what Stewart did to Bridges and what Bridges did to Stewart, it was identical. So are we really giving a guy 3 extra games because he ran off the bench and he wasn't on the court? Like, probably not. You probably give him 1 extra game for that. You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't give him 3 extra games.
No, I disagree.
Really?
Disagree there. As an NBA, it is so important for NBA players to stay on the bench. That is why whenever fights break out, you see coaches holding all the guys back on the bench. Wing spinning, because when players leave the bench, all hell breaks loose. You have lost control of everything. When it's 5 versus 5 on the court, yeah, you can kind of contain that. It's kind of easier to contain 10 guys. If you have entire benches running off the floor, yeah, you have lost all control. If other Pistons players had done what Isaiah Stewart did, this would have been so much worse. Yes, it's one thing for the player on the fight to jaw and bicker and even throw hands at times. But when you have players who are sitting on the bench, running onto the court, Yeah, that is an added level of danger that Isaiah Stewart presented.
Okay. I can hear you there for that. Did you hear what he said after the fight about how they don't pay me
Yes,
to
I
not
did.
fight? That was
Absolute baller.
and
Baller.
and you know why I think that's so funny, and there's probably a reason that he was able to get past the coaches, because I bet there was one coach that was like, hey, like, you see Jalen Duren getting his ass,
Okay.
like, no, like, we can't let Jalen Duren, first time All-Star, get his bell rung here, so you go in there, and he's an enforcer. He's one of the few enforcers in NBA history. Like, he's legitimately in it. That's his role on the team, and it was awesome to see him embrace that post-fight. That was awesome. I really did enjoy that quote. I thought that was I was like, hey, I was like, mad respect to you. Like, there are some guys that would do what he did and then hide and say, like I'm not a fighter, like I'm not a dirty player, like all that type of stuff. And I'm not saying he's a dirty player, but he's had a history of being a very controversial player. I will say that. And
like Draymond Green, he's built a reputation.
yes, Draymond Green, I wouldn't throw Draymond in the enforcer category as much as I do Isaiah Stewart. However, if hell were to break loose, Draymond back in his day would have done something other players would not have. And that's true. Mm-hmm. And this, you could say the same thing about Isaiah Stewart, that he will do stuff that 90% of the league has no business or doesn't even think to do, because that's his role. And it was cool to see. I don't want to say we need more of that, because we probably don't. But it's nice to see that, once a season, just a good old-fashioned Isaiah Stewart beatdown. Like, that was pretty cool.
Good old-fashioned Isaiah Stewart beatdown. Trademark that.
It was exciting. Like, and now the next time the Hornets and Pistons play each other, that will be exciting. Assuming those guys are back from their suspensions before that happens, that will be exciting. Like, that will be noteworthy.
Yeah. Stewart, like you said, he is an enforcer. Draymond Green almost feels like an instigator more than an enforcer.
I would agree.
Green feels like the annoying little brother who just constantly rage baits you until you do something to get yourself a technical or a flagrant. And then if he doesn't, then Draymond gets pissed and starts getting technical and flagrants.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
That's
he's
true.
An instigator, bro.
That's true.
It is entertaining to see. But yeah, like you said, it is different than the role Isaiah Stewart brings.
I would say the other player that I can kind of compare Isaiah Stewart to, and this is going to, I know the face you're going to make, is like Steven Adams. Like, I saw as an enforcer, but not in a physical type of way. Like, he was very peaceful about his enforcing, but he enforced his role. Yeah.
A brick wall.
Like, or that time when people went after Ja Morant and he literally picked the guy up and carried him away from Ja Morant. Like, like, you will not touch my superstar type of thing. Like, Isaiah Stewart would have gone in with a right hook probably. Steven Adams just said, no, like, get off me. Like, he picked him up. Like, those are the type of things that I think the league needs more of, because it just shows the emotion and, the love they have for their teammates and what they'll do for their star players. Because Isaiah Stewart saw what was happening to Jalen Duren, right? And he was like, yeah, hell no, that ain't happening. Like, no, that does not happen on my watch. And it reminded me of something Steven Adams would do. Just, again, totally different handling of the circumstances, but those are guys that are not shy to handle the circumstance.
Mm-hmm. Completely agree. Like you said, I don't want to say I want to see more fights in the NBA, because that doesn't sound
you don't.
Right? But I want to see more heated moments like this, more rivalries, more times where players are frustrated, upset with each other. They play with their emotions instead of just kind of going through the motions. Like, especially in the regular season, when we're in, I don't know, we're at game 40 right now. We're in the doldrums of the regular season. Yeah, seeing passion and emotion like this ignites not just the players, not just fans of Charlotte and Detroit, but the NBA fan base as a whole. Everybody was talking about Charlotte and Detroit that day. And so, like I said, I don't necessarily want to see more fights, but more heated moments like that, or more personal player rivalries, would only be a good thing for the league.
I completely agree with that. And there was a second fight that day too. I mean, that had nothing to do with the Hornets fight, but like, there's been histories of fights that I can, like, I remember when Ben Simmons and Kat went at it. That was awesome. I'm trying to think of a couple.
Jokic decked the Morris brother
in the back. That was kind of a cheap shot. I didn't really like that one. That I wouldn't really consider that a fight.
Okay, no, Morris tried to trip Jokic while Morris was on the
True,
ground. Then he
true.
gets up, Jokic got pissed, and then Jokic goes and
Yeah,
does
but
one.
what Jokic did to Morris is still a cheap shot, even if you tried to trip him. Like, that was a cheap shot. Full sprinting
Okay,
at a guy
okay,
with his
but if you're
back turned. Anytime you hit a dude with his back turned to you, that's a cheap shot. Like, that's a cheap
okay,
shot.
but if you're yes, but if you're Markieff Morris, how are you gonna try and pull a dude down by his ankles and then turn your back towards him? You deserve what you got.
Well, because he's a coward. That's why. I mean,
Yeah,
that's exactly.
You deserve what he got.
Well, okay, that's a little dark, and I don't know if that's necessarily true. I mean, the guy almost had his shoulder knocked out of his socket because he had a 280-pound dude running full speed at him, clocked him in the back. Like, I don't know if he deserved all that.
Okay, it would have been dark if Jokic like punched him in the back of the head or something. Jokic just body checked him. That happens in hockey every game. Like, it wasn't dark. Like,
yeah, but in hockey, when you back check a guy in the back, that's a penalty. You can't do that. So again, it's still like
okay. Well, I'm a hockey casual. My
yeah,
bad.
you have to hit him in the side or in the so he can see you coming. You can't just deck him in the back. Like that's not,
okay.
Again,
But like,
yeah.
Still, I guess it happens in hockey. If it wasn't like yes, it was a cheap shot by Jokic, but it wasn't like it came out of nowhere. Like
Jokic.
It wasn't like he.
The best way I can describe like my memory of that incident was that Morris is a coward, and that was a cowardly act, and Jokic overreacted. That's kind of how I witnessed the situation and how I handled it. Because again, Jokic, he got his emotions going, and he wanted to hurt Morris. I think that was evident. He wanted to let him know that what he just did to him was not okay, and his idea of that was to physically retaliate. If I were Jokic, I think I would have ran up there and probably gotten his face and hit him with maybe a two-hand shove, maybe gone to a right hook, but it like
we're breaking down film, but we're
like no, but like
fight.
If you're Jokic though, like, oh, do you remember his brothers too? Were like posting up, like like that. That to me is like I would pull like the mafia card almost and be like, hey, like my brothers are in the first row. Like, if you really want to settle this, I'll meet you in the locker room after the game, and like you bring your boys and I'll bring mine. And I think Morris would have got the message pretty clearly. I think
Jokic brothers would have been awesome.
I think
that in the next WWE headline event.
I think Morris would have got the message pretty quickly that what he just did was not okay, and which is why I say it's a cheap shot, just because there's other ways to handle it. But that was another one, yeah. What are other like?
Isaiah Stewart, remember when he ran through the George coaching staff like a running back trying to get to LeBron?
Yes. Oh my God. The NBA. That was like peak LeBron too, where like you couldn't lay a finger on LeBron on. Like, the only way you were going to get to LeBron is if you kidnapped him at his house in the middle of the night. Like, that was the only way you would have gotten to LeBron. There's no way you're going to touch him on an NBA court with all that security and all that coaching staff.
Which is why
no
it was
way.
Crazy.
No, yeah.
Isaiah Stewart barely through people.
That was a great one.
I lived rent free in my head.
I don't even remember why that happened.
Fights.
I know, but
yeah,
more
neither do I.
like I don't.
Isaiah Stewart running to him.
Yeah. No, the NBA, like we both said, we don't really need more of that. We just. It's nice to see that. Yeah, it's
every once in a
yeah,
while.
it's nice.
I don't want it to be a regular thing.
Yeah, like we don't need guys getting knocked out and concussed because they were in fights. Like we don't need that. But it was fun to watch. It was fun to watch. Like I can't deny that.
Any other teams or games you want to talk about before we wrap up this episode?
There were a couple things I just want to touch on real quick. James Harden in Cleveland, kind of exciting. Like, kind of exciting to watch.
Yeah.
I think he's played really good.
Both wrong about that.
I think he's played really good so far in Cleveland, and I like what I see out of him and Mitchell. Playoffs to be determined, but I think they're a good duo for the time being.
I think Harden offers a lot more self-creation than Garland does.
Yeah,
and going to be
I kind of alluded to that on nights where Mitchell isn't cooking. You can rely on Harden a lot more than you could have relied on Garland, and I think worth seeing that come to fruition here. I was looking at the standings in the East. I think it's a 3-team race, really, for the finals. And I think whatever team gets the 1 seed is going to coast to the conference finals. Detroit and then Boston and New York, whoever wins that series, I think are just on a collision course for the finals, for the Eastern Conference Finals. And then Charlotte, 4.5 games back of the 6th seed. Don't look now. But the Hornets,
they can stay hot.
They are playing like a top 10 team in the league over the last month, I would argue. And 4.5 games
definitely
is not a lot of games in the NBA. So look, they're currently the 9 seed. They were the 11 seed, I feel like, the last time we recorded. They've now jumped Chicago and Atlanta since the last time we recorded. And they're now 9. Only 4.5 games back of the 6th seed. So shout out to the Hornets. I would love to see them avoid the play-in altogether and just lock in a first-round playoff series. That would be so awesome. That would be so sick.
I've never seen a playoff game in Charlotte, and I think I would love to this year. So, yeah, I would also very much like to see Charlotte make it.
Yeah, I think the last time they made it would have been Kemba, which was like a decade ago. It was so long ago.
2017?
Yeah, like when they lost to Dwayne Wade and the Heat in the first round.
They never won a playoff series in my lifetime.
Yeah,
so
which
hopefully, maybe that'll change this year. Doubtful, but maybe.
No.
Never say no.
Well, actually, I don't want to say that because it depends who they play, but probably not. Probably not this year. But they are exciting. They are as exciting as hell to watch, and yeah, they are fun. They are a great team to watch.
Yeah, they are. But that'll wrap up this edition of the Hoopers Lounge podcast. We hope you guys enjoyed the episode. Lots of news. All-Star break is now here. Our next episode, we'll be recapping to you guys the highlights from the weekend, best dunks, 3-point contest highlights, and if the USA versus World game is any good, we'll talk about that too. Stay tuned to see our thoughts on that. Peace out.
See y'all.